Hello.
Hi. Yes. Can't really see that sign. It's got to be dark.
It's not working.
Mic's not on. It was just.
No, it's not on.
It was just identify as on.
And before we begin, so we are going to have just a short word from our library. Thank you for your attention.
Can you up the sound? Can the sound be turned up, please? All the way. You can move the mic though, maybe, so that people can not lean over so much.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Connie Elias. I'm the Digital Services and Marketing Manager for Madison Public Library.
Please put the mic closer to your face.
I think it used to be
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Much better.
All right, I'll start again. My name is Connie Elias. I'm the Digital Services and Marketing Manager at Madison Public Library. I'm here to read a short statement based on the level of interest that we've had on this event. The library is a welcoming and inclusive space that represents all members of our community. Our policy states that we make meeting rooms available to the public we serve on an equitable basis, regardless of the beliefs or affiliations of individuals or groups requesting their use. Standing up for intellectual freedom is a core value of public libraries, and it is based on the belief that society is better off engaging with complex, difficult, and even controversial content rather than suppressing the free expression of ideas through censorship. In that spirit, we ask that event participants follow our behavior policy at all times during this event. Participants must refrain from intentionally interrupting or disrupting the event. Failure to do so will result in a warning, followed by being asked to leave the event or to leave the library for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll speak up. Our first presenter is Lierre Keith. Lierre has been a radical feminist for only 40 years. She's the founder of Wolf Women's Liberation Front and author of 7 books. She will be speaking on the origins of quote unquote gender ideology and what we can do to stop it. Please welcome Lierre.
This record came out in 1972, which was also the year that my mother went to consciousness raising. True story. The glorious results are before you today. We had this record, and I still remember the words. And I remember going around the schoolyard and asking the girls, one by one, "Are you for women's lib?" That's what I said, women's lib. I was 7 years old. But I wanted to know who had my back, who was going to dig down and find some courage and fight for women. I'm 57 now. I've lost every battle I fought, but I'm still asking, are you for women's lib? For asking that question, for asserting that women are a material class. I've had so many death threats that men with guns have been assigned to my protection detail. If you had told me 20 years ago that one day feminists would need armed protection in order to speak, I would not have believed you. And it's not the government that wants me dead, it's not the pornographers and the pimps, and not right-wing ideologues. It's entirely men on the left, specifically men who call themselves transgender. Now, how did we get here? So 6,000 years ago, don't worry, we're gonna go fast, patriarchy begins. Now, patriarchy is a pyramid, and some people are on top. They extract resources, including labor, from people below them. They have a whole range of social structures to help in that extraction. and an ideology that affirms their right to do it. So there's the material extraction and then the supporting ideology. Now, around the globe, women face constant insults to our intelligence, our bodies, our lives. One example, the #1 reason women go to hospital emergency rooms is battering. That's a man beating up a woman. In the United States alone, a man does that every 9 seconds. That is more hatred than I can comprehend. This is the basic insight of feminism. Women share a common condition, and that condition is political. It's not bad luck, it's not choosing the wrong man, it's not created by evolution, and it wasn't ordained by God. None of these horrors are inevitable. Which means our biology is not the problem. According to the UN, sex is the biological and physiological characteristics that define men and women. So sex is simply a fact. Gender, on the other hand, is the socially constructed roles, behaviors, activities considered appropriate for men and women. That's the problem. Gender is the extraction and the ideology. So for male dominance to continue, every generation of boys has to be molded into dominators. Being a, quote, real man requires a psychology of entitlement, emotional numbness, and a dichotomy of self and other. Now, central to masculinity is a violation imperative. Men become, quote, real men by breaking boundaries. For the entitled psyche, the only reason no exists is because it's a sexual thrill to force past it. The real brilliance of patriarchy is right here. It doesn't just naturalize oppression, it sexualizes acts of oppression. It eroticizes domination and submission, and then institutionalizes them as masculinity and femininity. So it naturalizes, it eroticizes, and then it institutionalizes domination and submission. And that's brilliant. The brilliance of feminism is that we figured that out. Female socialization is a process of psychologically constraining and breaking girls, otherwise known as grooming, to create a class of compliant victims. Now, across history, this breaking has included so-called beauty practices like foot binding, like female genital mutilation, as well as the ever-popular child sexual abuse. Femininity is just the traumatized psyche displaying acquiescence. Gender demarcates the geopolitical boundaries of patriarchy. It divides us in half, but it's not a horizontal. It's vertical. Gender is not some cosmic yin and yang. It's a fist and the flesh that bruises. It's a mouth crushed shut and a girl who will never be the same. Without feminism, the realities of women's lives are unspeakable. Each woman cut adrift in a hostile, chaotic scene. Apply the words sex class, and that chaos snaps into a sharp pattern of subordination, from the small daily insults to body and soul, to the shattering traumas of incest and rape. The crimes men commit against women are done because women belong to a subordinate class, and they're done to keep women a subordinate class. It's not personal, and it's not random. It's political, and it's unjust. To get justice for women, we have to dismantle the caste system called gender. Brick by brick, we have to bring it down. Not accommodate to it, not make the best decision we can inside it, but bring it down. And now we come to the newest brick in that system, transgenderism. Reading the words of girls who think they are transgender has broken my heart. Now, in their own words, this is what makes them transgender. I like skateboarding, I love math, I want short hair, I hate my body. They want physical freedom, a life of intellectual pursuits, and bodily integrity. They want to be human beings, not objects. Now, feminism is very simple. It says all women are human beings, not objects.
That's right.
Yup.
Feminism is also very hard because, in the words of Andrew Dworkin, it requires precisely what patriarchy destroys in women: unimpeachable bravery in confronting no power. Now, transgenderism is also very simple. It claims some people like being objects, and those people are called women. Other people don't like being objects, and they're called men. This is innate, immutable, created by God or evolution or hormones or something, because clearly women's little brains can't handle the rigors of skateboarding or math. Instead, we are compelled by God or evolution or hormones to be pink, precious princesses. And when we age out of that, the pornographers are waiting. 12 million searches for teen porn. 14-year-old girls aren't stupid. The only world they see is a cage made by men and their predations. The only feminism they see is a celebration of collusion, not any kind of resistance. The personal isn't political now. The personal is personal. And some girls hate their bodies because they are really boys. This is the way out. Refuse to see yourself in other girls. Deny the caste you all inhabit and the system that puts you there. You are a human being. The other girls aren't. Any route to sisterhood, any rumor of female solidarity, any last whisper that once there were women who were warriors is gone. In my teen years, we punished our bodies with eating disorders and self-harm. And yeah, those spread by wild social contagion. Those practices have now been medicalized and institutionalized. Your doctor will take care of that horrifying female fat with chemical injections, and your surgeon will do the cutting for you. And many of the girls who were shunted down the path would grow up to be lesbians. Young lesbians are being gutted of their uteruses, their ovaries destroyed, their breasts sliced away, and their vaginas atrophied, all before they can vote. Free to be you and me through chemicals and surgery. They should be our next generation of warriors, and instead the battlefield is their female flesh.
Exactly.
The loss is not just individual. Lesbians are always the beating heart of women's liberation, and every so often, lesbianism and feminism come together for a brief moment, and there's an explosion across the culture. Women make progress when women love women. It really is just that simple. Lots of people are bewildered about where this movement has come from. Why are there so many of these men all of a sudden? Here's the answer: pornography. I did click through, so you don't have to, and I'm not going to tell you what comes next. But I will tell you there was one woman being choked, one woman having her head yanked back by her hair, a woman crying in pain, on an endless page of women being objectified, hurt, and sold for fun. And there's 13 million search hits for this. Men are now saturated in the sexuality of pornography, in sex that is about power, not love, about cruelty, not connection, about violation instead of connection. And some of them are going to find that subordinate role arousing. The porn industry is churning these guys out like turtles. This is what men are doing to themselves with porn. This is what they think a woman is. In real life, these are the images that women are drowning in. A relentless display of women reduced to body parts, turned into objects, willingly abused and loving it. This is the landscape of the mass media, only it's more like hellscape. This is what women are fighting against to restore our humanity. How many of these photos do we have to see before the pattern is clear? That's what a woman is. That's what a woman is for. So here's the bargain basement version. There's so many versions of this, just millions of photos.
They love taking selfies.
Yeah, they do. Does it get any clearer when you see grown-ass men dressed as sexy schoolgirls? Ballerinas? There's a slide missing. We had the adult babies. And if you don't think that that has real-world consequences, talk to me about David Challoner during the Q&A. So, and this is what is waiting for these guys, an entire genre called sissification or forced feminization porn. I don't have the heart to show you what this looks like, but it's men taking on aspects of femininity as humiliation and pain for the purpose of sexual arousal. So cross-dressing, getting called a woman's name, being anally penetrated with giant dildos, or like literally a man's whole arm, wearing fake breasts or high heels while being led around on a chain in public. It is horrible watching human beings get hurt and humiliated. But until you enter this world a tiny bit, you will never understand the nature of this movement. This is where they are coming from. This is the hell mouth. Some of them will even admit it in public. This is incoherent. This is Mr. Andrea Longshoe,
Used to know.
whose book, Females, A Concern, was reviewed in none other than the New York Times. So here's a quote. Femaleness is a universal sex defined by self-negation. I'll define as female any psychic operation in which the self is sacrificed to make room for the desires of another. The barest essentials of femaleness are an open mouth, an expectant asshole, blank, blank eyes. Now that's what they think these men think a woman is. And they want women, they want to be women because subordination gives them a hard on. I'm sorry to be so crude, but that is the driving force behind this movement.
That's right.
Yeah, they've got a few billionaires, but that's what powers it, not what
Billionaires
drives
like it too.
The driver is the paraphilia. The name for this is autogynephilia. This term was coined by Dr. Big Lecture. These men are sexually aroused by the thought of themselves as women. Now, it is now considered the worst kind of transphobia to mention autogynephilia when we say it. Meanwhile, many of them freely admit it. I'm missing a slide, I don't know why. Mr. Andrea Longshoe again saying, autogynephilia describes not an obscure paraphilic affliction, but rather the basic structure of all human sexuality. This is not just because everyone has an erotic image of themselves as female, they do, but the assimilation of any erotic image is by nature female. So his claim is that he's a woman, but the way he gets in is by insisting that, hey, everyone's a woman. But the reason he wants to be a woman is because a woman is the thing on which acts are done, and that idea gives him a thrill. This is vile. No other oppressed group in the history of the planet would be expected to put up with it. And if you think Mr. Andrea is a one-off, this was in the New York Times a few months ago. So because some men find the word woman offensive, the New York Times has decided that individuals who have resected vaginal sex is a reasonable replacement for the word woman.
No.
Women are passive sexual receptacles for an active male agent. This matches rather precisely how Mr. Andrea devised woman, and it is, of course, the entire endless point of pornography. Or as Catherine McKinnon said so succinctly, man fucks woman, subject, verb, object.
Yep.
Now you're allowed to get angry at this. You don't have to keep being nice.
That's right. Nope.
Don't worry, we won't.
One reason we are losing this war is because women refuse to face the nature of these men. Oh, the poor dears suffer from gender dysphoria. No, they don't. Their suffering is entirely self-inflicted. They are obsessed with their subordination fetish to the point that it takes over their personalities and their lives, and they don't care who they destroy in the process. You can ask the women and children who have survived these men. Their stories are horribly the same, used by narcissistic, abusive men who demand full servicing of their sexual desires. Okay, we say biology is real, and that humans are a sexually dimorphic species. This doesn't seem controversial, but the genderists have made it so. They insist that biology is a social construct because suddenly, after 2 billion years, sex is a spectrum and something about seahorses.
Don't forget the clownfish.
Gender is women's oppression, and we've got centuries of mutilated feet, genitals, and rib cages to back us up.
That's right.
They say no, gender is great fun. The only problem is we don't get to choose between the dominant and the subordinate roles.
That's
And
right.
some men really want the submissive role, and they are enraged when they are denied. The name for that is a Greek entitlement. Take that home, you're going to need it. Our solution is to dismantle male supremacy. their solution runs into trouble. They know that biology is not a story that humans made up. They can't dismantle it. So the best they can do is stop anyone from talking about it.
Mhm.
Our best outcome would be women's liberation. Their best outcome? Well, women are losing the ability to talk about sex-based oppression since sex doesn't exist. The women on the front lines are, as ever, the least of us. This is what's happening to women. Women in homeless shelters, in prisons, in battered women's shelters are being forced to share intimate spaces with men who claim to be women. The dignity and safety of the most vulnerable women have been weighed against the feelings of out-and-out sexual predators, and the feelings of those men have been declared more important. Feminists warned where this would end, and now they are. I want everyone to imagine the terror of being locked in an 8x10 cell with a serial sex killer. This is happening to women.
Yep.
And in the California prison where this is happening, women are sleeping in shifts because none of them are safe to shut their eyes.
Yeah.
And this is happening to women. A woman in the UK was in the hospital in what was supposed to be a woman-only ward, only there was a man there, and he raped her. Now that's horrible enough, but what happened next defies description. For an entire year, both the hospital and the police refused to do anything except repeat that no men were there, so there was no rape. An entire year. The only reason she was able to crowbar some justice out of anyone was because there was CCTV video all over the hospital and there was footage of her rape. This is what happens when you insist on absurdities like trans women are women. This
They're
came
not.
up in Parliament, and they were discussing single-sex wars and the necessity for it, and Baroness Nicholson said, during that year, she has almost come to the edge of a nervous breakdown, because being disbelieved about being raped in a hospital has been such an appalling shock. The hospital, with all its CCTV, has had to admit that the rape happened, and that it was committed by a man. This is hospital policy. Men are allowed to declare themselves women and get a bed on the female ward. And if any of the sick, vulnerable women asked about his presence on a female ward, the staff have been instructed to lie to women and say, there is no man here. Even if he rapes you, they will keep telling you there is no man. Oh, be kind, they said. Use the pronouns, they said. What does it cost you, they said. And now here we are.
Amen.
So, ultimately, the genderists want to liberate men's sexual fetishes. This is a men's sexual rights movement, and for that, they need women's subordination. Now, we expected authoritarians from the right. We weren't prepared for it from the left. Women have lost their jobs, they've lost careers, they've lost publishers, they've lost custody of their kids, and they've been physically assaulted. The most basic facts of biology are now considered hate speech, which means the reality of women's lives is back to being unspeakable. The worst part is, no one believes us.
Yeah.
I'm not budging from this. No one is born in the wrong body. Your body is yours,
That's right.
and a miracle.
Yep.
It's patriarchy that hates you, not me. The right-wing brand of patriarchy says, if your personality doesn't match your body, change your personality. The left-wing brand offers to change your body to match your personality. And by change, what they mean is chemicals and surgeries that will destroy your fertility, your sex organs, your bones, your liver, your heart, and your lifespan. I have no word for this except sadism. Meanwhile, feminists are still here, still arguing for the inviolable integrity of every human body and your right to inhabit yours, no matter who you are. There is nothing wrong with you. The situation as it stands, civic institutions that were built as a bulwark against power are crumbling. The ACLU has actively tried to keep citizens from accessing freedom of information after us. The American Booksellers Association has declared the feminist book hate speech. Journalists are afraid of losing their jobs. If all of this doesn't show you, nothing will. At Harvard, a professor is in trouble for saying pregnant women. Academia has fallen, though Hogwarts still stands. And just want to keep their heads down so they can keep their jobs, hoping that the fever will break because this can't go on. Well, it can, and it can get worse. Now, I'm asking the same question I did as a child. Are you for women's liberation? I still want to know who has my back. I want to know who's going to find that unimpeachable bravery and confront male power. And if we can't do it for ourselves, we have to do it for her. Because there is no one else to do it. So one more time, are you for women's lib?
Yes!
All right, thank you, Lierre. Next up, we have Thistle Pettersen, my local celebrity. She's a singer-songwriter and radical feminist living and working in Madison, Wisconsin. This was a founding member of Women's Liberation Radio, WLRN, a grassroots media collective that produces a monthly women's news analysis and music show. She will be telling her personal story of the years of harassment and bullying she has endured from gender identity activists.
Everyone deserves music, sweet music. Everyone deserves music, sweet music. So, step on the floor, walking through the kitchen, open the door. Ain't more stuff than the bottle of juice. See that you do, that we produce. You still running with your mind is right, because the things that you made that became the past. They recognize at the time of song, trying to take a ride at your ATM. Everyone deserves music, sweet music. Everyone deserves music, sweet music. Nobody wants to see you get along. We got train, we got rain, we got planes, we all a little bit insane. So that's why I sing this song, you know, because everyone deserves music, sweet music. Everyone deserves music, sweet music. Music.
Hello. It's good to be here. It's better still to see you here. Thank you for attending this special WLRN event in the beautiful city of Madison at our downtown public library. And please join me in extending my heartfelt appreciation to Lierre Keith, Beth Lowe, Carrie Bruss, and Arl Heil, all key organizers. It was their vision. Go ahead. Afternoon. And also a big shout out to Katie Yang, the deprogrammer, and Jeanette for the live stream today. And one more big thank you to Amy Souza and April Null for helping out remotely today. And we are rising. The song I just played by Michael Franti reminds me of the days I spent in. Who said what? No. Keep going, Thistle. All right. The song I just played by Michael Franti reminds me of the days I spent in Northern California after a long bicycle music tour down the West Coast. I practiced ecstatic dance once a week for 9 months in a lovely community center near Garberville on Sundays at an event we fondly referred to as Dance Church. I founded a weekly ecstatic dance practice here in Madison after I got back from my bicycle adventures in 2007. It was mostly women who came and participated, though we didn't have a rule that it be women only. And it was once a week on Sundays at Main Street Yoga right here in Madison. And I did this for 5 years. Through the years, there were a few men who were asked to leave because they made women feel uncomfortable by leering at them or even sometimes making lewd gestures and touching inappropriately. Not all of the men who joined us did this, but the few who did were asked to leave, except for one. There was a man who joined and asked to be referred to as she, which I thought nothing of at the time. This was like 2012, 2013. And I was fine with him being on the dance floor with us. He would wear mini skirts sometimes, but mostly he kept to himself, and I did not feel uncomfortable until one Sunday I looked up and I saw him touching himself and licking his lips during the dance. I told another woman leader in a private meeting what I had seen, and I referred to him as he when I did this, and she corrected me and reminded me that he wanted to be referred to as she, and also that she thought that I was big enough to just tolerate him and that we didn't need to take any action. And so after that, I didn't feel comfortable anymore going to dance church. The year was 2013, and I was just waking up to what this whole transgender craze is. And I knew that I couldn't stay with this male dancer being allowed to behave how he did and me being required to call him she. So that's just one story of many that have occurred here in this mad city. I'm sure there are other women in the audience today who have had a similar experience at work, school, or at some event here in Madison. Thank you all for coming to support me in particular, but to support the cause of women's freedom of expression and ability to be in public without harassment. Woo. Thank you. Outside harassment, I mean harassment. Threats of violence online, ostracizing, hounding, stalking, and launching campaigns against an individual's place or places of employment and their reputation. Just to be clear, I do not think that disagreement constitutes harassment and any of any kind, but rather one's right to disagree and publicly defend one's arguments is fundamental to democracy. What follows are stories of me getting harassed and forced out of Madison's establishment, leftist organizations, publications, and groups due to never backing down on my position that there is no such thing as a special kind of man who is actually a woman. That's right. I don't refer to men as she, no matter how much they may have altered their appearance with expensive cosmetic surgeries and hormones to appear female, or gone to St. Vinny's and done the basement variety of an outfit. I find this trend to be incredibly disrespectful to women, as if we are some sort of costume a man can put on, and I refer to this practice as woman face, to emphasize the disrespect of women I find inherent in the practice of pretending. And I mean all of the people around the man too, not just the man. All of us pretending that this special man is female. Okay. In a recent hit piece in Tone Madison, a local online publication, the author Emily Mills calls me a martyr for the cause, which got me to thinking about how I never intended to be anyone's martyr. I am a thistle growing up through the cracks of the sidewalk. An eco-primitivist radical, not a martyr. I remember in 2011, I was on a talk radio show with my band, Thistle and Thorns, right before we went on tour, and the host called my lifestyle of riding bikes long distances, camping along the way, and playing shows a sacrifice. And I remember responding, as did members of my band who were involved in the mobile villages of bike riders I co-created back then, that it's not a sacrifice to rely on yourself and your intentional community in nature to figure things out, right, Tiffany? Lost my place, sorry. Figure things out. Thank you. For me, my lifestyle will always be Lily, low impact luxury living. That's the term we use to describe our choices to be out in the open breeze on bikes instead of inside a building at an office desk or waiting tables or driving a cab. It is liberating to tell the truth and to feel the breeze on your face as you ride. I don't feel like a martyr. I feel like a woman liberated from patriarchal control.
Yeah.
And then there's a cost, which has been required of me for claiming that liberation. A cost I know is demanded of many of us who have done likewise. There are two Madisons that I'm addressing today. The first is the Madison establishment left, as represented by WORT 89.9 FM, the Wilmar Neighborhood Center, Wisconsin Network for Peace, Justice, and Sustainability, the Crystal Corner Bar, Tone Madison, and Our Lives magazine. All of these established media outlets, organizations, and venues in Madison have excluded, defamed, and shunned me in the name of inclusivity because I have publicly made it known that I don't agree with the transgender narrative, that I dissent from its political demands. I made my opinion known on WORT's airwaves starting in 2014 with an interview I did with lesbian feminist scholar Sheila Jeffries.
Yeah.
2014. I have since then hosted other radio shows interviewing lesbians and feminists, and I even co-created my own radio station online called Women's Liberation Radio News. It's really hard for our feminist voices to be included in the mix of what Madison is. This establishment Madison works really hard at stomping out dissenting views on transgender politics, labeling all of us lesbian and radical feminists as right-wingers or exclusionary or even hateful and bigoted because we do not toe the dominant line that asserts that there are some special men with special gender identities who must be seen and accepted as female. The other Madison I wish to address in this speech is the Madison that values open and civil dialogue, that expresses progressive values from the rich progressive tradition we have in this state, and that works towards a true inclusivity that includes lesbians and radical feminists. This Madison is largely unknown due to suppression of their point of view. And when I say unknown, I mean the Isthmus newspaper won't cover it, Wisconsin State Journal, nobody. And this is due to the suppression of this other Madison's point of view. But I know this Madison because it is this second Madison who showed up to the Wilmar Neighborhood Center board meeting on August 30th, 2019 to tell the Wilmar that they disagree with their ban on me performing on their stage, a stage I have performed on many times in the past. These 9 supporters, locals in our community who are environmentalists, herbalists, musicians, and high-quality people were ignored by the Wilmar Board of Directors at that meeting, and then subsequently, their letters and calls were ignored. Establishment Madison not only aims their vitriol at me, they ignore others who dare to stand up to them, hoping to send the message that if they speak up for women's rights, they may lose their livelihoods, their reputations, and their sense of community and friendship in this town. But I've gained so many friends by doing this, so I just wanted to put that out. I want to acknowledge and thank feminists in struggle for creating the Defend Feminists project shortly after learning about the Wilmar Neighborhood Center's ban on me in 2018. This small group of dedicated activists worked on that project for nearly 2 years before it became too burdensome and tiring to be ignored after hours and hours of documenting and petitioning in service to the cause of defending women like me from these kinds of attacks. But if you want to see the valiant efforts we made over those 2 years, please visit defendfeminists.net to read story after story of how Establishment Madison has suppressed and ignored lesbian and radical feminist voices and our supporters. Madison #1, Establishment Madison, will not permit me to even set foot in the Willie Street Co-op without the threat of confrontation by trans activists who think they have the right to approach me in public with their defamatory statements. It is this established Madison that chooses to highlight and applaud the music of the band Dumpster Dick. And now you can put the slide up. This is a Madison band fronted by a man who claims to be female, and he sings about burning women in dumpsters. His name is Christina Lane, and he's the lead singer of the band. And he was the main organizer of the campaign to get me fired from my job, my shows canceled at the Crystal Corner Bar, and to get me banned from performing on the Wilmar stage. If you substitute the word woman for the word TERF, you'll see how this term is used as a misogynistic slur in their logo there. They want to burn women in dumpsters. And this is an incitement to violence, or at least it's punishment for disobeying the trans creed. And now here's, in contrast, a video of me performing with my band at the time, Thistle and Thorns, up in, I think it was 2015 or 2016 at the Bartel Theater, which is a local theater really close up near the square. So that would be video 2.
Yep. Any opportunity for questions or anything?
There'll be a Q&A. Boy, hold on.
Can you put the image of the video up there, please, Jenna, while it's playing? The image is not going. Well, there was an image up there that was supposed to be up there of me playing, and there's supposed to be an image for this next one too, but will there be an image for this next one? Jenna? Video 3?
It looks like the audio is playing and the video, the image is not moving.
Oh.
Yeah, so the audio is.
Okay, so you heard that music. Now you're going to hear Dumpster Dick singing about burning women in dumpsters. Go ahead. All right, so this open incitement to violence was welcomed on the stage at Mickey's Tavern, which is also on the Isthmus and in my neighborhood, right down the street from the Crystal Corner Bar, where I used to play a regular monthly show with my band. My question for Inclusive Establishment Madison is this: how is Madison's music scene and culture benefiting from the exclusion of me and my folk music and the inclusion of Dumpster Dick, a band whose very name screams misogyny? How is Madison's music scene enriched and enlivened by this choice to embrace Dumpster Dick and to ban Thistle and Thorns? For the record, I don't like Dumpster Dick's music, but I would never organize a group to demand they be banned from performing and blacklisted at the same venues my band used to play at. Like Francie says, everyone deserves music, even your worst enemy. And I am inclusive of Dumpster Dick's right to do music. Why isn't Madison big enough for both Dumpster Dick and Thistle and Thorns? How is our Madison local culture? Local culture elevated by this choice to exclude me? The answer, of course, is that it is not. It is dumbed down and it is dangerously moving into the territory of authoritarianism by excluding music that does not even talk about trans, because it is not about them. Just because I did a few radio shows on WORT highlighting women's concerns about the incoherent concept of gender identity, Establishment Madison is dumbing down Madison's music scene rather than lifting it up. Women are female, and this fact is socially significant.
Yes.
Women are female, and saying that we are is not hate speech. For example, in public spaces, such as at a restaurant, or on the community radio station. The law rightly protects access by the public to public accommodations, prohibiting a refusal of service because of their sex, ethnicity, race, or personal beliefs in a free society. Access to the public airwaves used to be governed by the Fairness Doctrine, at least until the corporate capture of the FCC repealed the concept. But even then, our community-owned radio stations were supposed to be a place where, in the words of WORT's own mission statement, the station exists to serve a broad spectrum of the community by challenging the cultural and intellectual assumptions of our listeners through unique and diverse programming. We want to include everyone in these public spaces, or at least we used to. Now, in the name of inclusion, we exclude women's challenges to some men's intellectual assumptions. One such challenge is our assertion that there are times when we need to value boundaries in society, such as those in private women's spaces, like showers, locker rooms, sports, shelters, and prisons. It is not exclusionary to exclude men from the definition of the word woman in the law and in our understanding of physical reality.
Yes.
Males are not a special kind of female if they identify as trans or transgender fluid or non-binary. Whether you agree with my statements or not, I have the right to hold my view and express my opinion.
Yes.
My opinion that transgender politics is misogynistic and harmful to the sex-based rights of girls and women is not a call to hatred. It is a call for justice and dignity for the female half of our species. Loving women does not mean you are fostering a hatred for men or anyone else who may believe something you don't about reality. Our movement for women's liberation has faced this non sequitur for as long as women have stood up to advance our own self-interests. Let me back up for a moment. With the occupation of the Wisconsin Capitol building in 2011, the contemporary Occupy movement was transported from Cairo's Tahrir Square to our shores, starting here in Madison. I had faith in our progressive community and in the solidarity we had built. I naively thought it would always be like that. You can put the next slide up. So these are posters from that 2011 uprising, and I was sleeping up at the Capitol, I sang up at the Capitol, I was arrested for singing at the Capitol. I was one of the editors of the Occupation zine that did a grassroots document, we were documenting people's stories on the ground and all of their pictures, and we got a grant from the TAA, which is the union here at the UW-Madison. Anyway, everybody was all united for like Paris Commune type situation for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then the history. A lot of Wisconsinites know the history of what happened, how the recall didn't work and all of that. But I took part in these protests, and I am a progressive, and I believe and I have pride and power. I have pride in the power of progressive politics in our state. And I was taken by surprise to learn that Madison would be this blind to such blatant hatred of women. The limited time available to me today to relate this story does not afford us the time to review the blow-by-blow of my experience with other venues and organizations in Madison who have behaved in very similar ways to the Wilmar Neighborhood Center and WORT 89.9 FM. But my question is as relevant to the Dane County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, the Madison City Police Department, Our Lives Magazine, Bill Anderson, the Wilmar Neighborhood Center, particularly Beatrice Haddadian and Gary Callis, Eastside Acoustic Ensemble, particularly Rick Dietz, Tone Madison, particularly Emily Mills, Wisconsin Network for Peace, Justice, and Sustainability, particularly the 7 board members who signed the February 3rd defaming statement, and WORT, particularly Board President David Devereaux-Weber and News Director Shali Pittman. I am left to ask, how has our community improved and felt better to all of us because of your banning, shunning, ignoring, and ostracizing of me? How has our neighborhood improved since you decided to blacklist me and my band, all the while including a band who screams misogynistic lyrics into a microphone? Music is like sports in America. While the task of spectating is open to all, both music and sports offer elite opportunities only the privileged few enjoy participating in. But like the acclaimed pop musician Michael Franti says in the song you just heard, everyone deserves music, even your worst enemy. So it's not just the winners like Emma Wayant, the real NCAA women's swimming champ. Opportunities. Think of the soccer team at your local elementary school. All of those children deserve access to team sports to feel a sense of belonging and to participate both cooperatively and competitively in a fair environment. Not to mention, all children deserve access to sports education to stay physically fit. The same goes for musical opportunities at our local public schools. All children benefit from having access to musical experiences in groups, such as in the swing choir, in band, or in a musical performance. When I was in high school, I remember asking my guitar teacher why boys could play the guitar better than girls. She responded by saying, "Don't let them fool you. The only way they could get good on the guitar is by practicing, and you can too." So that was back in the 1980s here in Madison. A lot has changed. I practiced almost as much as my guitar teacher encouraged me to do, and I eventually found my voice as a singer-songwriter finally at about the age of 30 when I lived for a brief while in Michigan attending graduate school. I came back to Madison in 2000 and built up my local networks, including at WORT in the Wilmar Neighborhood Center, both places in our Madison community that I have been going to since the 1980s. In 2003, I took off on my bicycle for 3 years with my partner at the time, and we played folk music along the way to support ourselves. Next slide. And basically to see the country from the seat of a bicycle. This is a pic of me playing a show on that bike music tour in 2003. I contacted peace and justice organizations ahead of time to book the shows. And it was a gas fast. There was no motorized vehicle that was supporting us. We were eco-primitivists riding our bikes. I had my guitar in a trailer. In late 2006, when I returned to Madison, I was accepted into the Drumlin Community Gardens Collective that lived in 2 old farmhouses on the edge of town, just over the line into Fitchburg. Next slide, please. I lived there in intentional community, organizing among the Latino families who were our neighbors to plant on the farmland near the 2 houses we rented with the intention to build an anti-racist community neighborhood farming project that was in active resistance to the Alexander Company, a development company that wished to build a hotel and parking lot right on top of the gardens we were cultivating. Joni Mitchell had it right. By 2009, the Drumlin project had ended, but not without us putting up quite a fight to stop the land from being paved over. And this is just one poster, an example of like the benefit shows that we would do. I mean, and building intentional community. You see the skeletons on bikes. That's a big theme with bike activists. During this period, I hosted an open mic in Madison at the Mercury Lounge up by the Bartel Theater around the square. It was there that I met lots of local musicians who became collaborators, and Thistle and Thorns was born back in 2008. This band put together an album in 2012 and went on tour around Wisconsin and Illinois in 2011 and 2012. Next slide. So this is, you see the skeletons on bicycles and the thorny crowns with roses and the thistle and her thorns going on tour during Earth Week. So this very week, 9 years ago. I note that the Earth First Journal said this about my music. Thistle's voice is provocative and powerful. With raspy realism, her lyrics paint a picture of life on the road via bicycle, rage about the killing of the earth, and a commitment to fight back. I just wanted to point that out in case it wasn't abundantly clear by now that contradicting what Emily Mills says about me and the feminists that I work with, I am about the farthest thing from a Republican right-winger you could possibly be. Okay, next slide. By 2013, I was known as a Madison singer-songwriter and was asked to play shows around town for different benefit concerts and events. Often events that I helped to organize because throughout this time, I have also been a local activist with Madison Action for Mining Alternatives, or MAMA, and with the Act 10 protests and the no F-35 jets in Madison. By 2016, I had booked my own monthly show at the Crystal Corner Bar, and I finally felt like I was carving out the little musical career and niche my heart and soul had craved my whole life. I would play with my band at the Crystal Corner every fourth Monday. We would often order a pizza, and I would chat with everyone after my set. It was a community event that many people enjoyed. But all of that has changed because Christina Lane and his associates bombarded the bar's management and owner with stories of my alleged hateful bigotry until the show was canceled for good. The shows were canceled for good in February of 2017. It's at the point now that I got no place to go, like Francie sings in the song I played at the beginning of this speech, and I still got the music in my soul. Last year I put out an album with an old friend from high school who is also a regular WORT volunteer, Matthew Sanborn, called Spinning and Weaving. Of note, none of the notes and lyrics on this album are about trans politics. My life and my musical work are not about autogynephilic men and their hurt feelings, which is not to subject in my musical work. You can hear my music critical of gender ideology and its adverse impact on women by visiting WLRN's SoundCloud page. I do have songs that make statements about this issue, but this is not my reason for existing. Their fetishes are so tiring and so unrelated to who I am in so many ways. And my story is not unique. Let's not forget that women have been systematically excluded from the music world, just like we have been in sports. The New York Times reported on a study in 2018 that reviewed the top 600 tunes from 2012 to 2017. They looked at the Billboard charts. The research study discovered that 1,239 performing artists, of that number, only 22.4% of them were women. These numbers continue to go down as trans inclusion rhetoric increases and women are pushed out of their music careers and back into more traditional roles for women. Let's stop excluding females from music and sports, male-dominated arenas since before the trans trend came along. And please, Madison, it was just a sticker. Felony hate crime charges? Really? Intermission now, yeah. That was my album, and it's available if you want it.
This was awesome.
10.
Okay. I'll,
Say 5.
yeah. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Please be back in a timely manner. Restrooms are right there, as is Waka.
Carla? I have some, yes. I got it. I've got it. They didn't send this email out. Just read Very good. That's great. You know, sharing the numbers, so I'm just going back to mine. Your nerves. I have a lot of nerves. Once you get started.
Okay, so I'll be there. Holly's gonna say something for 30 seconds.
Sisters, thanks for sticking with us right now. We're having just like a 10-minute, 5-minute break, and then the speakers are going to start again. Yeah, within the next couple of minutes, we're going to start again. Next up, we have Jeanette Cooper from Feminists for Care. She's going to speak, and then the last speaker is going to be Jesika Gonzales of the Turf Collective. So definitely stick around for that. And I hope you all can hear everything better now. I moved the camera around, and I'll be watching to see if it's not you, and let me know, I'm sure. Thanks for being here, sisters.
To start finding their seats. We're going to have a quick announcement.
Just like the bus.
And where's Holly go? I lost Holly. Paging Holly hard?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sorry. No problem. The way I get students to settle down is we're going to start the quiz.
Thank you.
Holly has a quick announcement.
Hi, everybody. So it turns out that the Madison Museum of Contemporary Arts is in sync with us. Today, they are opening an exhibit with it called Ain't I a Woman? It is an exhibit that's curated by, I believe it's a Black woman, of Wisconsin women artists. It's the Wisconsin Triangle or something like that. And the Museum of Contemporary Art is located near the library, near our hotel, at 227 State Street, okay? And the reception is free reception, you do not need to register for it, you can just walk in. It's at it's from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. They do have free refreshments. There's also going to be and this, by the way, for those of us that are here at the Sisters for Sisters conference, I'm sorry, my mind just went somewhere else. It's from 5 to 8, and our group photo, in other words, it's shortly after our group photo, which I think is at 4 o'clock, and then we're going to do the Speaker's Corner event from 4 to 5. So they scheduled the reception perfectly for us. There's also an open bar beginning at 6, and there's going to be some performance artists too. So it's not just sculpture and paintings, there are performance artists also. And that's where I'm going to be.
Thanks, Holly.
All right. Next up, we have Jeanette Cooper, who lost not just custody, but all visitation with her daughter because she believes her child is a girl. Believes. Jeanette is a founding member of Partners for Ethical Care, a nonprofit focused on stopping the unethical treatment of children under the banner of gender identity affirmation. A radical feminist for 15 years, Jeanette writes about the possibilities of womanhood at deardaughterlovemom, all one word, .com, with the goal of gender abolition. Please welcome Jeanette.
Yeah, Jeanette! Love you!
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sisters, I need to hear your voices. Good afternoon.
Good
afternoon. Beautiful sound on this earth, the sound of women's voices in solidarity. Thank you. Before we scotch through this mess, that is motherhood and gender ideology, I need to ask a few favors. I know that I have not given you anything. And yet I am coming to you, asking you for something. But sisters, I would not ask you for something that you cannot give. It is not money, not today. It is not a place to sleep, at least not for tonight. It is not a bra. I have no need or want for that. It is not a cat. I have many. What I need is for every one of us to give gratitude to the women who have made this event possible, our sisters, Gaia girls and old crones, those who have shared their hands and their hearts, dedicated their dollars and their time, moved mountains and materials, the people at podiums and the one present in this room to bear witness to these stories and this day that we stand together in solidarity with one another. We need each and every one of us. No one of us is expendable, not disposable, not erasable, not transitionable. That most beautiful sounds speak aloud with deep gratitude for the sisters who have come before you and the ones who will come after you, but especially the ones who are here with us in this room at this moment. Please join with me now to say thank you, sisters.
Thank you, sisters!
And today I ask for courage. It is you who have brought us to this moment, this place, this time, this public platform to share ideas and practice that messiness that is the pluralistic democracy of America, and here we are. You brought me here, and now look at me asking you for more. But you can get it. You are capable of giving me the strength to speak. The wall of a womanly welcome with your voices. You can speak this word aloud in those voices that brought a smile to my face. I ask you now, in your most powerful, most fierce voice, to shout aloud, courage. Courage! 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 This is solidarity. Now that I am certain that you know what it means, that you have practiced it with your voice, I am certain that you will be here with me, walk with me, as I drag us through this mess. Yay. Today, I will talk about mothers and what we owe them. We all have one. I have one. She is watching this happen right now online. Hi, Mom! Mother, this adult human female who carried us and birthed us, and for whom we have so many feelings when we hear the word mother. She is our mother, but she is also our sister. Each mother, including our own, is also our sister, because it is she who, along with us, lives under the thick blanket of patriarchy. I ask you, my sisters, to consider each mother, every mother, as a sister. One who was born into sisterhood, just as you were, as I was, from the time of your conception to the moment of your birth, female, and thus deserving of space in our sisterhood. This is going to be complicated. It is going to be messy. I personally know a number of mothers of trans-identified children. I have read and heard the stories of even more mothers whose children describe themselves as some sort of trans. None of these mothers gave birth to unicorns. I do not believe in unicorns. None of these mothers gave birth to unicorns, and thus their children are either female or male human beings and will always be so. I do not believe in unicorns, and I do not believe in this mythological creature called a trans child. There is no such creature. This is mythology, a story that we tell ourselves to make meaning of a phenomenon that makes us uncomfortable. But this insistent, persistent, and consistent myth requires that we pull our heads out of the sand, stop believing in unicorns, and acknowledge that we have more work to do. The longer that we spend our time describing these unicorns, decorating them with rainbows and glitter, styling their hair, giving them names, platforming, and placating them, the more unicorn shit we will have to clean up when we realize they are not unicorns who defecate cotton candy, but horses. Horses whose muscles have never gained strength, whose brains have never been allowed to solve problems on their own, whose bodies have atrophied beyond repair, whose natural instincts have been worn down while trapped inside the cages of the man-made, man-marketed, man-centered unicorn land. No matter how a child feels, exactly 0 of them were born in the wrong body. And our children from this mess. It is time to clean it up. I am a mother. I gave birth to a girl. Her name is Sophia. Please manifest her presence in this room by saying her name, Sophia, aloud with me. Sophia! She has been the absolute love of my life. And I continue to be grateful that some sort of miracle brought her into my life as my one and only child. If I would describe her to you now, I would need piles of dictionaries, mountains of synonyms, truckloads of analogies, but they would all equal the same word, amazing. But while gasping for breath under the heavy blanket of patriarchy, she saw an opening, not toward liberation, but downward, toward the false flame that is gender. She carved her path toward that light, as has become normal for an adolescent girl seeking relief from the stifling suffocation that accompanies an entry into the body of a woman and into a society determined to sexualize her spirit. Despite spending her August summers from age 2 at the land in Michigan that many of us call home, she had not yet grown to believe that sisterhood was a path to power and peace. That truth had not yet seeped in to fill the marrow of her bones. Despite her favorite female voices of Stacey Ann Chin, Melissa Farrick, and of course Lisa Vogel, my daughter would need more time to grow before her bones and brain would be strong enough to hold the knowledge that her femaleness is her superpower, that girlhood is significant, and that no one, not even she, can escape the awesomeness that we were born as and the awfulness that we were born into. It is all at once a divine blessing on our sex and a burden so heavy that it continuously pulls our heads below the blanket, leaving us gasping and grasping for the hands of our sisters. And in that moment, some of us, including our youngest sisters, grab onto the hands that lead them closer to the false flame that will burn them. My daughter declared her trans identification on July 23rd, 2019, the morning after I dropped her off for a custodial visit to her father's house. I did not know that I would not see her alone again, have a private conversation with her, not be able to share space with this girl who I birthed and loved for nearly 13 years before that day in July. Today marks 1,006 days since the final day of her childhood with me, the final day of my motherhood with her, the final day that I stopped breathing oxygen and I started breathing fire. But it is not my motherhood on which I wish to reflect today. I have spent many nights waiting for the sun to come back, spending that time in the darkness, tears blurring my vision, saliva dripping from my mouth as I heaved up the grief. The realization that I had lost her, that the ties that bound us together were so easily broken by a few words, a few lies, and a few adults who failed to act in her best interests, but succeeded in serving their own at her expense. I thought that surely my heart would recognize that it was broken beyond repair, that it should stop beating and put me out of my misery. But that is the thing about the body. It is not something we can control for better or worse. Since those days of despair, I have unburied the sun and I carry her with me. She lights my path. And hopefully she can light yours too when you cannot find your own light, when you have not yet unburied your sun and do not yet know how to keep yourself warm in that darkness. That darkness that is not forever. Sisters, you gave me that sun, that warmth, that light when you gave me courage just a few moments ago. And now I ask you for more courage as we get deeper into this mess. Please, sisters, feed me again with your voices. Let me hear you say it. Courage. Courage! Thank you for that beautiful sound. Now walk with me to survey this mess. Today I reflect on the mothers I see in this landscape before I focus on one particular mother who needs our compassion and our sisterhood. Mothers in this are not a monolith. After nearly 3 years observing with curiosity and reflection, I have come to see a certain number of things that I cannot unsee. First, the mothers who hold the line and hold up a mirror to themselves. These are the mothers who cannot lie to their children. These are the mothers who are pushed and pulled and posted as pariahs on playgrounds and parent-teacher conferences because they will not play the pronoun game. These are the mothers who suffer the isolation of family and friends deserting them left and right, uninviting, unfriending, blocking, and backstabbing. It is these mothers who are learning the hard way, who is capable of caring, capable of coming to the table, bringing her a meal, holding her steady when she is ready to fall. These are the mothers who need you and me and us. These mothers have strength, but they need more. These mothers have courage, but they need more. Let us speak to these mothers in this moment, giving them the courage that they need, giving them what they need to hold the line that will protect their children from the harms of gender identity. Please give them what they are owed. Please, sisters, I want to hear you say thank you.
Thank you!
Now, sisters, give them the strength to continue to hold the line. Please let me hear you give them courage.
Courage!
Mothers, did you hear that? Did you hear the voices of the women who will go with you to the school board meeting, stand with you as you testify at the State House, sit with you while you cry? Did you hear the voices giving you the courage to ask for the help that you need? You deserve their help because you, my mothers, holding the line, have held a mirror toward yourself. You have done the work. You have dug deep inside yourself and your past and acknowledged those ways that you have failed to be the perfect mother. You have compassion for your child. You acknowledge that your child has suffered and is suffering, and you are doing the work of holding the line with compassion for yourself and for your child. You have looked at your actions in the past, dissected the patterns and pitfalls of living a life led from a place of unprocessed, unrepaired, and unrepentant trauma. You have committed to being a better mother because you can. You have grown. You have made a new life, new friends, new ways of being. You have carved a path forward for yourself that is not just a road running parallel to the road that you were traveling before you have grown. You have done exactly what you have told your children not to do. You have met strangers on the internet, become friends with them, learned to smile more and cry less. You have learned that your supply of tears is finite, but your supply of laughter is not. And these women, my sisters in this room, and those hearing my voice, will stand beside you. We commit to showing and sharing our power with you to end this mess.
Yes.
Let us say it once again to these mothers holding the line. Let us give them courage.
Courage!
It is time, my sisters, to consider the other mothers. And this is a mess. Mothers who carved a parallel path. The mothers who hold the line, but you dare not cross it. These mothers are not so easy to call sisters. These are the mothers who need more time, more strength, and more of something they can only give themselves. These are the mothers who Jennifer Billick accurately describes as the ROGD parent, a whole and complete identity mirroring the same patriarchal system, same cult-like qualities, same inability to grow, same mirror on their chest facing toward everyone else, same learned behaviors that their children have, but the difference is they are adults, not children. They have much more agency over their lives than they are willing to admit. They seem to seek your sympathy, but it is sinister. They may not play the pronoun game, but they play many others. They find fault in everyone and everything but themselves. These mothers appear to hold the line, but they are trapped inside themselves, and if you are not careful, they will trap you too. But these women are our sisters. So what do we do with that? And I call upon you to have compassion for these mothers too. These mothers have lived inside the system of patriarchy that taught them this self-centeredness, that taught them that their worth is given by someone else, that taught them that their identity is wholly and completely enmeshed and immersed inside the identity of someone else. Hold compassion for these mothers too, but keep yourself outside of their line. You will be sucked in so swiftly, spit out so quickly, and trauma will be multiplied and unmanaged and messy. Hold yourself close to them, but hold yourself steady. Help them out of their mistakes, but do not allow yourself to make your own. Give support, but do not enable. Let me speak to these mothers in this moment. Sister, I can see that your trauma has taught you that you are the one who is suffering the most and are powerless to forces beyond your control, that you have no choice but to dedicate your time, your emotions, your tears to this movement, but that is a lie. You deserve a life, sister. You deserve to be human. You deserve to build a life for yourself that is not codependent, not enmeshed, not transactional, all patterns that you probably learned from a very young age. You deserve the vibrant variety of living a life that is mundane, finding beauty in the everyday, finding joy in the normal, finding contentment outside of controversy and turmoil. Doing this work should be one thing, not everything in your life. You, sister, deserve the fullness that comes from building and breathing new dreams. And you can start today, at this moment, right now. Sister, you must no longer use the crutch of victimhood, no longer repeat the story of woe is me, no longer sit in the sinking ship waiting for someone else to rescue you. You must grow. It is time we all stand in solidarity with you as you choose to grow. Now, I call upon my sisters in this room at this moment to manifest this change in these mothers who have struggled for too long using reasons as excuses. It is time to grow. This is what we owe these mothers. Together in sisterhood, let us create this change for our sister mothers by speaking the word manifest. Manifest. And our most treasured gift, let us give it freely to these sister mothers, the word that will give them the power to begin the first step of self-reflection. Let us speak the words into their body, courage. Courage! Now, sisters, it is time to get deeper into this mess. Come with me to see the compound that is the global gender industry and the mothers who consume this poison and feed it to their children. Believing it will cure them of this disease called childhood, they are the affirmers. These are the mothers who play pronoun games, believe in unicorns, and cannot bear witnessing the distress of their child being human, their backbones collapsing under the weight they are weak. They cannot bear standing present with their children, watching their emotions inside this social media manipulated, peer pressure cooked misogynistic mess. These mothers have been taught to believe that they are responsible for fixing everything, of making everyone smile, of making it all go away. They have been trained to make themselves and this place look pretty, but it is not pretty. Their method of madness will never serve to clean up this mess because they are pulling at the vines rather than pulling at the roots. Their signs are pink and blue pretty, but their hearts still beat red. They are fighting against their intuition because they are alone. These mothers do not have the strength that comes when you stand beside your sisters in solidarity. These mothers are scared of losing their family, losing their friends, losing their jobs, and losing their child. And it is up to you, to me, to us, to hold the truth in front of their face, but not shove it down their throats. It is up to you, to me, to us, to set a space at our table, to invite and invite and invite again, to show these mothers what strength looks like, what sisterhood looks like, and what they gain when they pick up the line and hold it. That these mothers are my sisters, that they are women and women are human, that we must be present with them, share space with them, and carry compassion to them. And what these mothers need most is courage. Their intuition has been buried so deeply from teachers and neighbors and therapists and media and doctors and our government. The layers of lies littering her brain must be unpacked piece by piece until sparks of truth can light her path out of this mess. These mothers are doing the best they can, and they are failing to protect their children. Because they are our sisters, we must help them if we wish all children to be protected. No one will be abandoned in our sisterhood. We need each and every one of us, and we are all capable of growing. Let us create space for these sister mothers to grow in our presence. Let us give them water, let us give them light, let us give them courage. Say it now with me to all of the mothers who need strength to speak the intuitive truth that is still inside of us. Let us give them courage. Courage! I have brought you to the deepest point in this mess, but I am not done. You will need a shovel from here. There is one mother who needs your strength of sisterhood and your courage and compassion. She is the wife of my husband, the mother who has helped fertilize the vines that are choking my daughter. Before my daughter left our home for the last time, on July 22nd, 2019, my daughter spoke with this mother, this licensed clinical social worker, this therapist, this woman with whom I had never even had one conversation. From this moment with my only child, this mother decided that she was going to save my daughter, being a warrior for her cause, filling her cup of virtue with my flesh and blood. This mother never called me. This mother never weaved a web of support for my daughter, strong ties of women who might guide her out of this mess, no. This mother built walls, and it became darker and darker for my daughter, having left her sunshine at our home on that day in July when she departed, and I didn't know she would never return again. There was a plan, and this mother, this gardener of weeds, guided my daughter through a dark forest, disorienting her, taking her adolescent thought of, I think I'm trans, and rather than using the brain that the good goddess gave her, she pulled out poison. This mother fed my daughter the lie that my transphobia might actually kill her, that my truth might actually shine so much light that it would burn her, and that my love needed to be replaced by the hollowness of validation by words, not deeds. No child will kill herself if she hears her birth name. Our girls are stronger than that. I am tired of too many people telling them they are weak, they are not. My daughter will rise.
Yes.
She will not stay buried under this mess. She is incapable of staying stagnant inside the lie that is transgenderism.
That's right.
She will grow.
Yes.
The seeds have been planted, and even before she left our home, I saw signs. When this mother asked my daughter over text, maybe your mom thinks she's a man. My daughter could not stop herself from writing in all caps, my mother would never think that. And this is how I know that she knows what we all know, that being trans is a lie. She knows what a woman is. Everyone knows. So this mother, this lost soul of a sister who has taken up a sword to slice the ties between my flesh and blood and my body, this mother, she needs you. She needs you to create space for her to grow. She needs you to hold the line. She needs to see a wall of women ready to welcome her into the sisterhood of strength that will allow her to grow out of the rock that she is living under. She needs you. She deserves compassion. She deserves to know that there is another way, another path, a way to retie the ropes that she cut, clean up the blood that was spilled, grow the spine that she lacks. She must know that sisterhood is for her as it is for every woman, every girl, every female that is forced from the womb into this mess. Because I have asked you for something that may seem impossible, I must now give some of my courage to you. The truth is that you are given at birth a number of things that you can control and a host of things that you cannot. As someone who has been lucky enough to spend 44 years on this earth, I can advise that you spend your time focusing on those things that you can control and accepting and even loving those things that you cannot control, because it is those things that if you try to control them will suck the marrow out of your bones. You can control only one person, and she is yourself. Focus on her. She is the greatest weapon in this fight, and she is ready to grow, and she must, if you are able and wanting to do this work. She needs this woman, this mother. She deserves this courage, but I am not capable in this moment of giving it to her.
That's okay.
And I ask you, my sisters, to have the courage to give her what is owed, what she deserves. She deserves so much, but she deserves this. I am asking you in this moment, at this time, to give her what is not possible for me to give. Someday I will be able to give her the compassion and courage that she deserves, but that day is not today. She is capable of doing more, and it is up to you to call upon her to grow. In this place, at this moment, I need you to share again what you have given to me today, again and again and again. Say aloud with me the word that gives the strength of solidarity, courage.
Courage!
Thank you. She deserves that. It is a beautiful day outside, but there is so much warmth and light in this room. Will you please stay with me, feeling this warmth? Seeing the light of us shine from this stage, stay with me. More sisters are going to speak, and what a blessing it is upon us to hear their voices. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Thank you, sisters.
Okay, fantastic, Jeanette. Thank you. Next up is our final speakers. And after that, I'm going to make a couple comments about leaving this space. Jesika Gonzales is an ordinary, working class woman.
Extraordinary.
and the founder of the mysterious Turf Collective.
Yeah, Turf Collective!
An organization pursuing guerrilla approaches to fighting trans ideology. She invites women to imagine a future free of the impositions and requirements of the patriarchy. Thank you, and please welcome Jesika.
All right!
Trans women are men.
Say it again, we didn't hear you.
My name is Jesika Gonzales, and I'm not scared of shit.
Woo!
The name of this event is Courage Calls to Courage, and I want to use this time I have to call on your courage. My personal opinion is that we do not have enough women that have shown up to be counted in this fight, and we will need many more in order to win, and the sooner they show up, the better. There are men that stand against the agenda of trans ideology and conservatives that stand against it too. But I believe that for our success on this issue to be genuinely emancipatory, we will need more women.
Yes. Yes.
We will need to show up to build that critical mass that it will take. There's simply no way around that. This talk I'm about to give is most directed at the average, everyday women that are just like me and are where I was this time last year, very much aligned with the objectives, immersed in the online culture, but not yet very concretely involved in the effort. There are plenty of women like me who are uncancelable. We work in industries where gender ideology has not yet taken root, or where adherence to it isn't being enforced. Some of us might not work for an employer at all. Some of us are even retired or work in the home in some capacity. There is energy to be tapped there. At the same time, I recognize that many women are not in that same situation. And even many women that are uncancelable don't exactly realize it yet because we've been bombarded with this messaging about how forbidden it is to be a TERF. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself and how I ended up here on this panel right now and why you should listen to me. Like Dr. Hale mentioned, I'm just an average woman. I work a blue-collar union job that takes up almost all of my time. I don't write books, or even have a YouTube show, or anything like that. I consider myself an ordinary soldier in the struggle to liberate women and girls from patriarchy. Last year, I began to take up organizing and led and participated in several protests across the country. What makes me special enough to be here speaking to you today is that around this time last year, I had two ideas that really kind of took off. The first was Turf Collective, and the second was our target action.
Right.
Turf Collective is a group that was born when it occurred to me that all we TERFs on Facebook that spend so much time trolling trans identity supremacy activists and even each other might be served by having regular meetings. The vision was simply for a time and space where we could come together and talk. I see it as a feminist assembly of sorts. The goal was to gather the women where they already are, which of course was Facebook. There was no agenda and no goal, just a sisterhood circle to talk about our struggle against trans ideology. What I originally wanted was for us to create an online army from as many TERFs on Facebook as we could round up. I wanted us to actually coordinate the way we spend all the time we do arguing with TRAs on the internet. I envisioned mapping it out so that we could identify women that are close to peaking and providing them with the critical information that it would take to get them to see and understand the consequences of the agenda. Imagine a coordinated campaign of virtual canvassing. I haven't fully abandoned that vision, but the ever worsening censorship on social media might make that too difficult to ever pursue, let's be honest. We cannot possibly speak plainly about the biological realities of males and females and the social realities of patriarchy, and especially the role of transgender ideology within that framework without catching a swift and immediate ban on all social media platforms. Well, what happens at Turf Collective? Everything. Women come by to share the struggle of living with people that believe in trans ideology. We talk about falling out with family and friends over our differences. We talk about strained relationships, fear at work, ideas for combating the narrative. Most importantly of all, we come together to reassure one another that no matter what experience you've just recently had that has made you feel like you are all alone and the walls are closing in, that you are not and they are not. We also platform really difficult conversations about feminism in general, the place of race in radical feminism, and what boundaries must and should be respected by women of different races in order to build a real solidarity, for example. We talk about the fourth industrial revolution and the connections between transgenderism and transhumanism. We talk about whether we can work with and trust any men. We talk about whether we can and should work with conservatives, and if so, to what extent. I will say, as an aside, we at Turf Collective largely do support the use of right-wing platforms, because we're generally all in agreement that we won't win this battle from a place of obscurity. By far, our favorite topic to discuss remains activism. We love to talk about our ideas. We love to hear a good idea and add to it. We love to hear reports from sisters that just undertook an action. How did it go? Was there good engagement? Did you get a lot of support? Any detractors? Tell us everything. We have nowhere to go. We can be here all night. Turf Collective now boasts over 600 members across 2 Facebook groups with several dozen attending our regular meetings. Although our meetings are the main thrust of our existence, many of our members have never been to them. They just work on our campaigns and protests completely out of sight and remain unknown even to other members. Before I go any further, I'd like to briefly address our embracing the term TERF. I've said what I'm about to say before. Women are being re-traumatized at rape crisis centers and support groups, sexually assaulted by so-called lesbian men in single-sex spaces, and all our hard-earned social and political allocations, even sports and scholarships, are all being hemorrhaged. At a time like this, we refuse to be diverted into a debate about being called TERFs. In fact, if standing for the dignity of those women makes us TERFs, I've said this before and will say it 1,000 times, we would be deeply ashamed indeed not to be TERFs. If you find yourself unconvinced and underwhelmed by this explanation and continue to have grave concerns about our appropriation of the term, please rest assured we simply do not care. We are quite busy and focused on the projects we're undertaking to promote tangible sex-based rights and protections for women and girls, and are well beyond being bothered to argue over questions of semantics and philosophy. So please, let the mind rest. Our group initially ran our meetings right on Facebook. Within the Facebook group itself, using the video conferencing feature it offers called Rooms. Am I getting too close to this?
No, you're good, you're good.
We quickly outgrew that feature, the Rooms feature that is, noticing that it would only allow maybe 15 women on a call at one time before it stopped admitting new participants. The goal was to create a table where every TERF we knew and trusted had a seat, so therefore naturally this would not work. I ended up buying a Zoom account with a surprise COVID bonus I received from my second job at a big box hardware store to handle all the participants. Well, the number of women on any call varies. We sometimes get as many as 40 women on a single call, and I don't ever recall hosting a meeting with less than a dozen women. After 2 months, I had to quit my second job in order to make time for the workload of administering the group, moderating the meetings, and boosting our activism. By June, we had over 400 members across 2 separate Facebook groups, and in August, due to demand, we even began selling t-shirts. I'm telling you about TERF Collective because, as I mentioned, it was one of the ideas that I had last year that brought me here, but I also want to tell you about TERF Collective because I want you to copy it. I want you to get a Zoom account or a Jitsi account, or maybe you'll start a chat or call group on WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram or Discord. Start your own group for TERFs that meet regularly to discuss the most important questions we are all dealing with right now. What are we going to do? And how are we going to do it? I'm practically begging you to do this. There shouldn't be a single TERF collective, there should be TERF collectives. What I noticed is that a lot of first-timers at our meetings, is that they couldn't stop talking. They were just over the moon to be in a room of TERFs. We don't believe in transgender ideology. When some women come to their first TERF collective meeting, they breathe a sigh of relief. They can speak freely on this issue, maybe for the first time, literally ever. The community we built was obviously filling a previously unmet need. I have no doubt there are women out there right now still in desperate need of face-to-face community and solidarity building with other sisters, and we should keep forming groups to provide such community. It's a little hard to get into our group right now because we're kind of running a wait list. But you can and should have your own if you know enough women to organize your own, and you really only need 1 or 2 other women to start. Even if you only meet a few times and fizzle out, that is still a success. The fact you managed to connect at all is a triumph. This will probably sound corny, but I genuinely believe that any time women share space to talk about the harms of patriarchy, we are winning a small battle within a larger war. If you're not currently in a women's discussion group, please do whatever you can to find your way to one. Women's Declaration International runs an amazing group after their weekly feminist question time sessions where I've met some incredible women. They're also branching out into general discussion groups for and among women here in the States, and they have regular volunteer meetings. Just try to go to a bunch of meetings. Whichever ones you can get into and start talking to other women that share your views on this issue. Listen to their ideas and share your own. Share what's holding you back. Share the limitations that you already recognize in yourself, and share what you have to offer. Be earnest and be honest. Before I move on from this topic, I would be remiss if I didn't take the time to acknowledge the great debt the TERF Collective owes Thistle Pettersen. Thistle is, of course, why we're all in Madison, Wisconsin today. She has been toiling diligently for over 5 years now, archiving the contemporary radical feminist movement, and that 6 years, sorry. And that deserves our recognition and deep gratitude. Thank you, Thistle. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Jenna. Radical feminism will indeed remember Thistle Pettersen. Thistle was one of our first members and remains one of our most enthusiastic supporters. She was the first to give me a platform and have me speak about Turf Collective. She was the first person in a position to take Turf Collective seriously that did take Turf Collective seriously. She is very important to Turf Collective and to the movement in general. This past summer, Thistle, as we all know, was charged in the city for a crime that doesn't yet even exist in this jurisdiction. Namely, hate speech, specifically around the nebulous and farcical notion of gender identity. This charge was brought on the basis of her having allegedly placed a Turf Collective sticker on a magazine box. To this day, I still have no earthly idea who put that fucking sticker there.
That same box.
I attended Thistle's hearing, which was held virtually. The district attorney quickly conceded that Madison has no foundation for a charge of hate crime against Turf speech, as gender identity is not a class covered by the hate crime statute. The judge held that the speech was protected by the First Amendment. With that, Thistle was the woman that single-handedly showed in a court of law that Turf Collective won't leash. Now, the original vision for Turf Collective was just a sort of headquarters. For Facebook Church in early June, I had an idea that would change who we are and what we do. This brings me to the second good idea I had last year, our target action. In 2016, Target decided to get ahead of the curve in its support of trans ideology and changed its bathroom policy. The new policy meant that everyone could use the bathroom and changing rooms matching their gender identity and not their natal sex. American conservatives have carried out a massive boycott of Target in response to this new policy. Well, ultimately, the boycott was determined to have a bit of an impact on Target's profits. It was not enough to force them to change their policy, not even close. In 2018, the man that runs the website womenmeansomething.com collected all the news reports of sexual assaults that had taken place within Target stores since the new bathroom policy was imposed. What he found, once we collected all the data, was that there was indeed an increase in incidences of voyeurism in changing rooms since Target had announced the policy. Upon stumbling upon an article about this, I thought that Turfs should protest by placing mini flyers with information from the study at Target stores. Naturally, I figured these should go in the bathrooms. There, the information would be presented at the scenes of the crime, so to speak. I brought this idea to our next meetings, and it was determined that the best way to distribute the flyers was not to put the flyers in the bathrooms. The bathrooms were cleaned and used so often by so many people that at any moment after placement, any employee or trans identity supremacist could simply grab them all and throw them in the trash. We thought of potentially printing them as stickers and sticking them up in the bathrooms or changing rooms. That wouldn't work similarly, because as soon as they were spotted by management, they would be taken down and our protest would be very short-lived indeed and would just be a punishment for whichever unfortunate retail worker was tasked with the scraping. The very same woman that drew up our target action flyer gave us our best solution. She said, put the flyers in the bags, the handbags in the pockets. It was brilliant. From there, we were off and running, listing all the places in the actual merchandise to be purchased where we could stash the flyers. The possibilities were endless: panty liner boxes, jeans back pockets, outerwear, even romance novels. Anything that was likely to be purchased and used by an adult human female was worthy of receipt of a flyer. This way, we were assured that nearly every flyer we placed would reach our target demographic. I threw together an initial social media post, which included a picture of the flyer and doubles as a file to be printed to participate, and some tips and tricks on how to do it. That silly little idea really kind of took off. To date, we've placed nearly 10,000 flyers and merchandise in Target stores all across the country. We've had members do it in 50 stores from Vermont, New York, Virginia, Illinois, Minnesota, Washington, California, and of course, Wisconsin. For as long as their bathroom policy remains based on the false notion of gender identity, this protest is valid. You could be watching this video in 5 years and you can grab that flyer and you can go do it. The goal of the protest is not to get Target to change its policy. The goal of the protest is to use the policy and the results of the policy as an opportunity to share information that has the potential to pique more women. We're trying to bring to their attention that this kind of thing is already in place, which even I didn't know. And no one will ask you whether you're okay with it or not. And there are these terrible consequences of the policies that you didn't ask for and that if you're smart, you wouldn't want. Now on to my ask. I'm here to ask, to beg that you come to the fight against gender ideology. I don't mean watch the talks like this one and read the articles and share the memes and links on your social media accounts. That's good, and I don't want you to stop doing that. Definitely keep doing that. But what I'm asking you is to begin to challenge yourself to do more. I'm asking you to become an activist. We seem to be turning a corner on this issue, and I think now is the time. I'm asking you for courage, but let's face it, I'm not asking for that much of it. If you waited until now, until join the fight, you're in luck. The tide seems to be turning, and things, frankly, I believe, are getting easier. I'll talk a little bit about why I think that. Last summer in New York City, I organized and led a small but very impressive group of valiant women in protest in July. This protest was at Rockefeller Center, which was displaying the Olympic rings